mean, I've always had this philosophy of holding the individual accountable. You know, the only exceptions I have to that are people who have some real mental issues where they really can't control themselves, or they've been, you know, subject to some really extreme conditionings, which are very rare. You don't have that in everyday life. I hold individuals responsible for their own behavior. I believe in that. I really do. You're responsible for your choices. I believe in that. People like to blame the Bible and blame the Quran and blame whatever other holy books. You know, I think of every holy book I can think of, the Bhagavad Gita and some other books which I don't know the names of. But you can blame all those holy books and blame the preachers and the priests and whatever. But you know, you're responsible. You know, it's like in the old days, the days when I was growing up, old days. You know, and I'm sure people may do it now, but there used to be all these court cases of blaming rock music for some kid committing suicide or going out on a shooting spree or whatever. You know, people always want to blame something in the world for all the things that people do. And I think that there's a thing called being responsible and teaching people to be responsible. I believe that that's the case. You see, it's the principle on which our justice system is based. If you commit a crime, you're responsible and you got to pay consequences for it. If you're not responsible, then we should just open up all the prisons. Take every prison and just open the doors and say, you all are not responsible for all the things you did. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Open up the doors. Let everybody out. Because nobody's responsible. See, I think that the debate on either side of it, the one thing that everybody forgets is that individuals are responsible. Like I said, I note the exceptions. If you have some type of mental disorder which really prevents you from having any kind of control over yourself, that's one thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the individual who doesn't have those things. You have some responsibility. And I was watching a video a little while ago. It was on a different channel altogether. And it was about there was this woman in school. I guess it was like a college class. It kind of reminds me when I was going to community college. It looks like one of those kind of classrooms. And somebody was videotaping this incident where this woman, she threw a water bottle at the teacher. And then they got into an argument. She threw a water bottle at the teacher because the teacher had given her an assignment or asked her a question. And they got into some big argument about the work. I guess it was the schoolwork that they had to do. And this woman got really upset and mad and angry and started acting crazy and everything. And they had to bring in security people. They had to handcuff the woman. They took her off to jail. But the thing is, you know, this woman act like, you know, it just, the thought occurred to me as I'm watching this woman act crazy. And she's blaming everybody in the world for her own bad behavior, for her violent behavior toward the teacher. And yet I'm watching this, I'm looking at this video, I'm thinking at any point this woman could have just simply stopped and just been quiet and just let it go and find some other way to deal with it. But she had to keep being really upset. Not just being upset, but really violent and threatening. And I'm thinking, see, our society, our world sort of allows us the freedom to be irresponsible sometimes. Because we like to blame everything else. This is one of the problems I have with some of the people who want to blame religion for everything. And I mean on both sides, even the religious critics who are religious and the people who aren't religious. I just hate that ideal that everybody wants to blame this for everybody's behavior instead of the individual being held accountable for their own actions. We might say that religion, now this is something we can talk about if people want to talk about that. But that individuals, they choose to do things. You know, the terrorists did what they did, that choice. I really do believe that people have a free choice. See, I believe that, for example, if you take for example, what happened in Jonestown. Did those people have a choice? Yeah. Now, I know that that might be a rather controversial stance to take, but people, because so many people did it, and it's easy for us to say, well, they were so brainwashed. I remember one time saying that to somebody, and he sort of like tore me a new asshole, but righteously so, to a certain extent. Some old guy, you know, but he was right in what he was saying, you know. I said, well, maybe they were brainwashed. No, people, you know, and and it was a long time ago. It was more than 20 years ago. More than 30 years ago. Now that I think about it, because the Jonestown thing happened in 1978. I was like 18 when that happened. Actually, I was 19. I just turned 19 when that happened. But, yeah, there is this thing where you do have a responsibility for your own actions. Of course, these people paid the ultimate price for not taking responsibility. People made choices. Some people didn't. You know, when they were doing all that stuff, when people forget about the Jonestown incident, is that even though a large, very, very, very large number of those people did participate in committing the suicide thing, some of the people didn't. Some of them refused, and some of them were shot. People forget that not everybody voluntarily did it. Some people were forced into it. Some people were killed, and some people actually escaped. There were people who actually got away. We forget that fact. Look at the details of the story. But you know, when people get into things, they get into things and they don't think about what they're doing. Because they're looking for somebody who's going to come up with all the answers. I don't think that it's just a religious thing. It's this, I don't want to be responsible for my life thing because somebody else is smarter than me. See, it could be a religion. It could be God. But it could be anybody. When you just don't take responsibility for your own life. You don't take responsibility for your own choices. You know, this is what Jean-Paul Sartre would have called bad faith. And read Being in Nothingness, you know, when he says that, bad faith, or look it up in Wikipedia. Bad faith. The sort of making a choice and then distancing yourself from the very choice that you made. You made that choice. You chose to do that. You can blame it on God. You can blame it on Satan. You can blame it on whoever you want, the government or whatever. But you have choices. See, look at the situation in Nazi Germany. You know, well, the government made me do it. Well, I had to do it. I had to go along with the No, you have choices. And sometimes those choices are tough. I know that times where I work, I've had to make tough choices. Choices that meant that sometimes I was going to be punished. I was going to be punished by people in positions of authority and power. But I decided to do the right thing. I faced punishments. Because I knew what was right. I knew that hurting other people and doing bad things to other people, that was wrong. I got cut out of the loop on things. I wasn't given privileges like everybody else. Maybe sometime I just wasn't as loved as everybody. But I took the responsibility. I faced the consequences. I got a foot in my ass sometimes. And I really did. But I did what was right. People know. Sometimes we get so luxury minded, so comfort conscious, that we got to have comforts. We got to have luxury. We got to have status and privilege and materials. And if somebody threatens, and sometimes the thing isn't that people threaten to kill you, but they threaten to take away comforts. See, religion, this is the truth. It's that whole community thing, not so much whether there's a God or not. I actually find that to be such an irrelevant point, and I don't care if people want to argue with me on that, they can. But I think that's such an irrelevant point, is whether or not God exists or not. Is people miss the larger picture. They really do. It's about being responsible. It's about sometimes not having a comfort. Sometimes it means not having a comfort because you know you can do what's right. I could have sold out my coworkers in my other job. When people were being mistreated, I could have sold them out and had comforts. But you know, I'd have to think about that every day. That I'm living comfortable while other people are suffering because I'm enabling some unfair people to do things to other people. And to me, that is something that I'm not going to do. It doesn't take a belief in God to know what's right and to do what's right. And sometimes that means sacrifice. And sacrifice in this case means sometimes giving up a comfort to do what's right. That's the way I feel about it. I mean, that's my thought on it. And sometimes people just don't understand that.